the second meeting in August, I believe.
Do you want me to stay at the race? Or just leave it?
No, just
Are you instrumental?
do too short.
Not as much as I used to.
You used to be? What'd you play? Oh, wow.
Good, how you doing?
Tired.
Pleasure to meet you.
Good evening.
Tri Lakes Radio.
Terry sent us some connections, and I just haven't had a chance.
Busy too.
Interesting tagline.
It's radio. Local, national.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I love it. It's a great start.
Things that don't suck.
I'm putting that on my car.
Do you guys still have a young kid working over there? A younger kid working over there? No, he was an adult.
Is it a 24-hour radio or just?
I know nothing. I didn't even know it
He
existed.
used to work at the.
I've never heard of this radio station either.
Sometimes it's hard to fill up airtime, so.
White noise at night
Yeah, well,
Okay,
from midnight on.
nice. He's a good kid,
Yes.
because I had a couple experiences with him.
Yeah, we're hoping
I was
he's
really
gonna be
impressed.
September, October, right there.
Nice.
So we'll see what happens.
It's gonna be a sports book.
No, it's actually a sci-fi fantasy.
Nice. So I know he was big into the sports.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm waiting. Still haven't read it myself yet. So,
Cool deal. Just
Got any things that don't suck. Isn't that cool? That's cool. I like it. I think you should. Well, you all, for sure.
I got somebody else's card. I just had to cross their name out and write my name on it, so I let them see it, but I take it back.
I'm guessing he's sitting in the back just because he doesn't have.
Isn't that funny?
the agenda.
I think it's
Neither
great.
does Jennifer. Or does she? No, neither does Jennifer.
Mr. Mayor, are we putting wagers on time?
I'm going for 7:30.
30.
With?
Including
I'm going,
exact.
Including exact.
I'm going for 6:45.
No, that never.
6:45.
Koopman's wife was hoping
Deny,
7:15.
That would put us to,
I
that
think
would put us to 7:30, including the exec.
I think 7:30 is probably more realistic.
so it's 7:15. We're making it happen.
We're gonna amend the agenda, yeah.
That's right.
We do it. We're gonna do it. I don't know.
That's right. Don't have to take a bathroom break for that one.
No questions.
No. No discussion.
I know, I told my husband, 7:30.
I already talked to him about it.
Okay. Keep it brief.
Yes, that's basically what he said.
Small little groups.
I call to order this regular meeting of the Monument Board of Trustees, Monday, July 15th, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Romero, would you take roll, please?
Yes. Mayor Wilson,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Here.
Trustee Bornstein,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Here.
Trustee Koopman,
Here.
Trustee Romanello,
Here.
Trustee Stevens.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, before us we have a consent agenda and an agenda. Is there any modifications to the agenda?
I would like to modify the invoices. I have some questions.
Okay, do you have just general questions on all of them, or?
I have one question concerning all of them.
Okay, we will move checks over 5,000 to number 3 and move every other number down. Is there any other modifications?
Move to modify the agenda. I'd like to move to add an executive session to tonight's agenda to, 1, discuss matters that may be subject to negotiation, developing negotiation strategies, and instructing negotiators relating to the Northern Monument Creek Interceptor Project. And two, to discuss the case of the Town of Monument versus Forest Lakes for the purpose of receiving legal advice from the town's attorney on specific legal questions related to the litigation, and to discuss matters that may be subject to negotiation, developing negotiation strategies, and instructing negotiators relating to the town's response to this litigation.
Okay, do we have any other modifications?
Yes, I'd like to make,
Oh, go ahead, I'm
Nope.
sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to remove the recognition of James Schubauer this evening to another evening when he can be here.
Okay, so that moves checks over 5,000 to item number 3, an executive session at the end of the meeting. Is everyone in favor of those changes?
Aye.
So a
All in
motion
favor?
to approve.
Motion to approve is
The
modified.
agenda
Okay.
as submitted.
Second.
Presented.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Romero, would you take roll, please?
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Koopman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes,
Trustee Stevens,
Yes,
Trustee Romanello.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. First item, check over 5,000. Checks over 5,000. Mr. Worth, would you please step up? I'm assuming your questions will be directed towards,
No,
oh,
But-
my apologies.
my apologies too.
Go ahead.
I just noted that on some of the invoices, especially the legal invoices, that they're all being sent to Mayor Wilson and the town manager. So I would like to be added to the normal distribution of those correspondences for equality of information.
But everybody gets them.
I never get them
Then
In the
how did you
board
know they were in there?
in the board packet. I'm saying, at the top, it says
Mhm.
where it's being sent, and I noticed it was just being sent to you and the town manager before the board meeting.
Okay.
So I would like to be included in that distribution. And of course, anybody else who wants to be included in that distribution can speak up as well, but that was my question. I would like to be,
I mean, are they mailed, are they emailed, or?
I
Yeah.
believe they're mailed and sent PDF to Mr. Foreman.
Yeah, I don't think I actually get them, do I?
I think they're addressed to you, but I don't think you ever get them.
And then I believe he puts.
We put them in the board packet.
I guess, just as a formality, put Board of Trustees, I mean, Town Manager and Board of Trustees? or-
Whatever your pleasure is, I'd be happy to do it.
I'm fine with just Board of Trustees.
Yeah.
Thank you.
great, thank you.
and keeping them in the board packet though as the
Yes.
distribution.
Yes.
Was that
That was
the
it.
extent of the question? Okay.
Easy.
Discussion items, Economic Development Committee appointments, Mr. Foreman.
Yes, last meeting I asked to have this put on there and just wanted y'all to have a discussion. We'd like to have two members of the board to be on the Economic Development Committee. Triview's gonna appoint, I believe, two of theirs, and then we're gonna have people from the citizenry to be on there also.
Okay.
Can you shed a little light on, I guess, what the expectations are for that? What type of structure it is as far as town meeting? You know, are there meetings? Is it just a general public discussion? Is the public invited to participate, listen, hear, all of that?
Probably at times, there are gonna be meetings that are gonna be closed. They're gonna be, because it's economic development issues, and so when we're talking about something specific, that may be closed just to the committee. And then other times, they're gonna be talking about general stuff that we're gonna invite the community into.
Okay.
So, and we'll probably have them once every quarter or something like that.
And as far as board inclusion of the information, how are we going to ensure the quality of information amongst all trustees, regardless of whether or not they're appointed to the committee?
Depending on what the information is, we'll either do it in public or we'll do it in an executive session.
Okay.
So we'll share it with, after the committee meeting, we'll share it with the entire board.
Okay.
Yep.
And how,
Mr. Foreman, so there'll be, from our residents, you're gonna have two also? Or
That hasn't
you have
been,
that in-
that hasn't been determined yet.
So
Or make
fair
that decision.
assumption, though, you'd split it between east and west, so you
Exactly.
have a fair representation?
Right, exactly. That's what we're looking for.
Thank you.
and can you tell me how long of a time commitment that would take per meeting?
Probably, I wouldn't think it'd be more than 2 hours. You know, most of the time I think they'll be an hour, but some of them may stretch as long as 2 hours. The ones that we've been having so far, you know, very introductory, and so they've taken a little longer than an hour. But I think these are gonna be specific about issues, so I don't think they'll take longer than an hour.
And will they be held after work, on the weekends, before work?
That can be
9 to
decided
5?
by the committee. I don't think staff probably would like to have them during work, but, and a lot of the people that travel here from the organization, would like to probably have them 8 to 5. But, you know, if it's decided by the committee that we need to have them at alternative times, then we can do that.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to I would like to be on that committee.
Okay, do we have any other volunteers or any suggestions?
I'd be interested, Mr. Mayor.
So we have 2 from Triview then, and nobody from the town as the board members on the committee as of right now.
Yeah, I live in Tri-
They haven't appointed theirs yet either.
Right, but I mean, I know you're from the town, but these 2 live in Triview.
Right.
Interesting, you're wanting maybe west side as well?
West
Yeah,
side,
it's like
east
one
side.
board member west side, one board member east side.
That leaves me and you, Mayor.
Well, I think that's a good point.
How long, I mean, are we looking to have this committee?
It's probably truthfully going about 3 years, so every year you probably could point somebody else to be on there. But I think it would probably gonna take, honestly, 3 to 5 years.
So,
Given that your term is longer than mine, I would suggest you would make sense for west side representation.
so I have a question for the board, and again, my term will be ending, in April, of course, which could possibly then transition me from representing the board to a citizen for consistency, whereas Ms. Clark will still have multiple years where she could still represent as the board, if there's not other volunteers.
I think the mayor and trustee Clark would make good additions to the committee. And trustee Elliott, I appreciate you recommending west side and east side. I think that's important. As much as I don't want to divide the town in half, it is. And
It has to do with Metro District
It's good
versus
to get a
non.
balanced option, absolutely.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I did not intend for,
Yeah, you did.
We had coffee Saturday and talked about it.
Any other comments or recommendations, or do we want to just go with that for the time being?
Go with what?
Go with myself and trustee Clark.
Well,
I've
he's interested.
I've got questions, and again, that's fine with the 2, but I have questions relative to Ms. Clark's business
Okay.
and participating in that. Just as trustee, I think that's a conflict. Based on the development of economic development for both east and west and where we're going.
and
I've
the
made
line
it,
of work.
I've made,
Commercial or residential?
I've made it a point to substantially remove myself from any commercial or residential sales in the monument area, so to avoid any kind of conflicts. And my relationships with developers, et cetera, I don't feel it would be a conflict at all.
I would agree with her. I think that having someone that's in the real estate industry, she has someone with that background has an eye towards development, and I think her expertise could lend support to, a lot of value to the committee.
Thank you, trustee Stevens, I appreciate that vote of confidence.
I agree.
Okay. Doesn't anybody want to argue with me about being on it?
No, you're on it, John.
I think there's a citizen out there that would like to comment.
Do we have a citizen with some complaints?
Now, you can hold the town manager accountable, he said, once per quarter, maximum of 2 hours, so.
Okay.
During the workday.
Mr. Foreman, do you feel you have your direction?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving forward, resolutions. Resolution number 22-2019, a resolution awarding a contract to A1 Chip Seal for the 2019 Chip Seal project. Mr. Tharnage.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees. There's actually going to be 4 back-to-back resolutions here, and so I'll be up here for a little bit. First one in front of you tonight, Resolution 22, is to award a contract to A1 Chip Seal for the 2019 chip seal projects, which are scattered around town. I believe there's 2 or 3 locations, and we have enough money left over. We'll probably try to get a little more. This is a typical project that we do every year. Of course, the amounts vary. I have to split funds between chip sealing and paving and other priorities that the department has. So do you have any questions for me concerning the contract for A1 chip seal?
I have a couple.
Okay, go ahead.
On this awarding of the contract, were there any other bids from any other companies?
We did not put this one out to bid. The contracts that we do in our current purchasing ordinance allows us to take advantage of other government contracts that have already been bid out. And as long as their prices are matching the lowest price or lower, then we normally proceed down that path.
So how do you know that they're lower than others if you don't bid it out?
Is that a state bid? Or kind of like a state bid?
It could be a state bid. This chip seal, I believe we looked at the city of Fountain and Canyon City, both of which have had a full bid process coming out, and the results coming out of those yielded A1 chip seal is coming in quite a bit lower than the other chip seal type companies.
But is
Interest-
that process similar to a state bid?
I believe they all follow the same format. They put them out by RFP, and then they select based upon the most responsive bidder, I think is the way to word it.
So do you, like a project like this comes up, you look for essentially comparative projects with maybe surrounding towns?
Yes.
And then you initiate the contact to them initially and say, hey, would you be interested in our project as well?
Normally, we have our engineer tech go out because he's out there every day. He knows who the contractors are and who's bidding what. And then he brings at least 2 or 3 prices to me. And we look at them, we compare them, we make a few phone calls, making sure they're willing to honor the prices that were recently awarded to other entities. And then that's how we decide on who to choose.
And then do
Have we
they,
done- Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Have we done business with this specific
Yes.
contractor
Yes, we
before?
have.
Like once, twice, the last 10 years?
In the last 10 years, I can't give you an exact number, but I can remember at least 3 of them. 3 of our chip seals have gone to these. So they're not always the ones that do it every year. In fact, the same thing when you get to paving. Paving changes quite a bit because they're pretty competitive when they try to outbid each other. And you'll see on the next one, Mark Marietta ended up looking at that one. But there are, the year before, I believe we had some with Schmidt Paving. And then we had one with a different company prior to that. So I think they're all pretty close to each other. There's not really a case of where one company will just, underbid everybody to try to get the job and then not put out a superior product. These are vetted pretty well. Everybody knows in this industry, if you do a crappy job for a town or a district, you're probably not gonna get any more of those contracts. It's normally how the industry
So
works in these areas.
if there was a new contractor getting into this industry, the way it's being operated right now, it would most likely be impossible for them to get an opportunity to obtain business with various municipalities, districts.
If we look at previous contracts or other towns, then yes. The way our purchasing ordinance is, you can do it multiple ways.
I would.
Choose
I know in the.
I would disagree with that, because a lot of times, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of times you have a small job that none of the other companies wanna bid on. So the new company gets to step in, prove themselves, and then grow from there.
Yeah, and again, I'm asking, I'm not, because
That's what I've run into.
I don't know how the procedure works. I think as we're growing as a town, because I do know that we've had, not specific to this by any means, and not in your jurisdiction, but we've had companies that wanted to come in and do business with the town, and they were blocked. and they weren't allowed to participate. So I just think we have to be able to let the new guys or the smaller guys and not just assume because of a project, here are the boys, girls that are bidding on it, so we're gonna pick. So, and I think that's working in modifying our procedures for purchasing and awarding some of these bids.
Yeah, one thing, trustees, that we did was we assigned a committee internally to work on our purchasing policies, and those are just about complete. I reviewed them this week, and we'll be presenting those to you in the pretty near future. I think in 2 more council meetings, you'll get a brand-new purchasing policy presented to you.
And that'll address
Some of these
situations like
issues
we're
that you're talking about,
So,
definitely.
okay, great.
And so I understand from reading through the paperwork here that on the chip seal, it was also something that could be done pretty quickly because they were operating with other entities already?
Yes.
Okay.
We tend to choose people who have done recent contracts because their prices tend to be the same. Rather than having a several-month gap, then changes in the market sometimes drive those prices. So by taking advantage of the procedure we're using, I think in the long run, we're saving quite a bit. One of the big areas that we save on is usually the mobilization costs. If they're doing work in the Tri-View Metro District or in Colorado Springs or even as far as Castle Rock, a lot of times it's not a big mobilization for them to stop by here and do and judging by the amount here, Canyon City and Fountain's chip seal projects were in the hundreds of thousands. They're much bigger than these, than what we're looking at.
Thank you.
Do you know how much under budget this 81,000 is?
It's hard to divide it out. I have a set amount used for asphalt repairs. And usually I look at what the paving's gonna run because the paving is the more expensive part of the budget. And then whatever I have left, I look to see what kind of roads we can get down. We have an engineer's estimate that our engineer tech draws up, so we have a pretty good idea what it should cost. And then when the numbers come in, lately, we usually get pretty surprised. They come in, several cents less per ton or whatever unit of measure that we're sending out.
Okay.
So I think for the town and the budget, this year in particular, it seems like we ran a pretty good price compared to previous years with this particular company.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Would anybody like to make a motion?
Motion to pass resolution number 22-2019, resolution awarding a contract to A1 Chip Seal for the 2019 Chip Seal project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Romero?
Trustee Koopman,
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Resolution number 23-2019, a resolution awarding the contract to Martin Marietta for the 2019 paving projects. Mr. Thornish.
Yes, this is our annual paving contract, similar process where we did the chip seal. We look at previous, or people in the, companies in the area that do this type of work, and we compare prices, and we have them submit some contracts so we can take a look at them. This one in particular, Martin Marietta, is the one that has done a lot of work in the last month and a half, 2 months in the Tri-View Metro area. And I don't believe I can't remember what their dollar amount was. It was somewhere in the $800,000 to $900,000 range worth of paving that they've done over there. Our roads, spanning a little bit of the background here, we tend to spend a lot of money on 2 of our major roads that see the most traffic. That's the Old Denver Road and the Mitchell Avenue Road. If you read the background here, there's one item in here I just want to bring to your attention, and I'm sure you took a look at it. This particular contract, when they all came before me back in probably second week in May, first week in May, we looked at them, we evaluated them, we chose Martin Marietta as the company to do a contract with. And when I had initiated that contract, or at least gave them the go-ahead, I forgot to say we need to take that to the board. And it slipped my mind. It was in the stack the same time we were doing water rates and everything else that came along. Once I realized that I hadn't brought this contract in particular to you, we were already underway on the paving. So it made sense not to interrupt a cycle like that. So I put the explanation in here, and I have taken steps in the meantime to prevent this kind of occurrence from happening again. I've developed internal checklists, and also I have a second supervisor looking at all this stuff before we let any contracts leave my office. That way you're in on those contracts and give your approval or not approval.
But this is still within the budget we approved.
It is within the budget. Even if you combine the chip seal project with this one, we're still about a little over 30-some thousand left over. There's gonna be another contract coming to you next board meeting for some asphalt patching for manholes in the village center metro area, and that's in preparation for some major paving that we're trying to schedule in for next year. We have to do a lot of prep work ahead of that. But I couldn't get it into this project in time, so on that one in particular, nothing's gonna happen until that comes before you on August 5th and gets approved, and then we'll move on from there. But those are typical of every year. We do a paving, we do a chip seal, and this particular case, we have what we call asphalt patching or milling around manholes that we have to prepare for.
Okay, questions from the board?
I have a couple. So, from what I understand, there were so many coming by your desk that this one slipped your mind, and you have a checklist now, an
Yes.
internal checklist? And who's the direct supervisor that will be reviewing that prior?
This will be Steve Sheffield.
Okay, and then, I just, as the town gets bigger and as we grow, I really believe that we need to have a system in place, Mr. Foreman, that would help to avoid situations like this in the future, because I really don't like to approve something after it's already begun.
I understand, and we do have that system in place now, and that's part of our purchasing policies that we're doing, but also part of his process that we reviewed. After I found out about this, we reviewed that, went through that, and Tom's got it under control now.
And so even are you going to be putting in something that is a automatic reminder, this is coming up on his computer, or is something like that going to be included where, besides this two-step process, I don't foresee Mr. Tharnish's position getting less busy. I just don't see that. So I would like to really encourage that we have a system in place where this does not ever happen in the future.
Okay, we can take a look at that. Like I said, this is the first time since I've been here that it's happened, and we immediately addressed it. He came to me and made me aware of it, and we immediately addressed it. And I feel like that it's not going to happen again. So,
Okay, and
but
then-
we'll take a look at what other steps we can take to prevent it from ever happening again.
And possibly on these jobs and these projects, we could the board could get an update on the status of where it's at and how much money has been spent on it periodically throughout the process itself on the project.
And we definitely can do that. And I think Tom gives an annual report right now, but probably we could break that down into quarterly reports.
That would
so
be
that you
terrific.
could get a little better feeling of what's going on in the town.
Thank you so much.
Just-
Thank you, Mr. Tharnish.
Just a comment, and then from Tom's situation, these things happen, but Mike, to ask you as town manager, I would have to think that you're in the process, because what Tom shared, you're not in the process. He's sharing other people.
Right.
So I think on these projects, as we do get busier and there are dollars, and it doesn't matter if it's in the budget or not, we still have a procedure. And we missed it, but things happen, so we move forward. But you should be the final oversight for these to go through, not other employees. So
Right.
I hope that that's part of the new protocol.
It is.
Because
Yep, everything runs through me.
To second that, I agree. I think you having final checkoff to say, hey, did we bring this to the board or not?
Right.
I value Trustee Clark's comments, not specific to the Public Works. I just know there have been several, in my tenure here, there have been several items that have come our way for approval of a particular contract or purchasing of an item. And it's always after the fact, where we've had, the debate back and forth, well, you have to approve it because they've already done the work. So,
Exactly.
it's a catch-22 because the folks need to get paid for the work they did.
Right.
But
It's a bad place to put you in.
yeah, so
and we don't
I
like that.
value the accountability in owning up to it and putting the fail-safes in place. I look forward to some of these come down to, it looks like we have some updated purchasing procedures that we need to discuss and look at. So as long as we're moving the needle forward, that looks good. And it sounds like Martin Marietta has already done the work, or at least begun the work, so they need to get paid for the work they're doing. So.
And how much longer will they be working, or are they completed with this project?
They're completed with this particular contract.
So
Like I
the
said,
whole thing was done and never brought before the board?
It was done in about a week. Old Denver Road and Mitchell Avenue were the two roads.
Back in May?
No, that's just when I had sent it forward, but we didn't, the work wasn't done till about the week before the 4th of July.
Just a couple weeks
And that was kind of the, part of the emphasis too, was whenever we start these, we have to think about parade routes and the impact. So if we have any road projects on any of those, we try to get those done a week prior to the impending parade, so we're not in the middle of a construction zone when that comes through.
So we've only been out of the loop about 10 days?
Whenever it was done, yeah. We're counting days.
Trustee Elliott?
Mr. Tharnish, I'd just like to make a couple comments. I come from a very regulated world and working with the FDA, and things like this do happen in every line of work. And I'd like to commend you for your transparency in bringing this up to us and telling us that this is now a retroactive approval, and that and for explaining the process you have now in place to prevent this from happening in the future. And that's exactly what happens in a regulated world.
Okay, thanks.
Any additional comments from the board? Do we have a motion?
Motion for resolution number 23-2019, a resolution awarding a contract to Martin Marietta for the 2019 paving projects.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Romero?
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes. That motion passes 7-0. Resolution number 24-2019, a resolution approving the distribution of funds from the 2019 Public Works budget to El Paso County Parks per agreement in 2016. Mr. Tharnish.
Yes, this particular resolution I kind of been waiting for, I guess, going on 3 years now. Back in 2016, in February of 2016, the El Paso County Parks was in the process of trying to basically deed over large tracts of land that they currently maintain. And my guess is it had more to do with them having to pay to get a crew up here several times a year to maintain those properties. In 2016, they quitclaim deeded over the area between 3rd Street and Highway 105. It's about 11 acres of land, and in exchange, what they asked for was some assistance to repair the Santa Fe Trail where it crosses underneath the Highway 105. That's been a known problem area that tends to flood sometimes when you get heavy rains. They're also responsible for debris, clearing debris out of that channel. And the agreement at the time, and right away, as soon as the deed came over, they wanted us to write them a check. And we kind of explained to them that we can't just write you a check, we need a copy of a contract. So then they went away. And so every year I've been budgeting its own line item in Public Works, saying El Paso County Trail support or something like that for $20,000, because that's a maximum amount that we were responsible for. They brought a contract this time with, here's a copy, Colorado Flat Work. The total of the contract's $34,567, so we're responsible for half of that. So our commitment to this is $17,283.50, which is about $2,700 and change under our budget line item for that. So before you have, or in front of you tonight, you have the quick copy of the quitclaim deed, where in the conditions it states that's our commitment to them. And so I request if you can take a vote and approve this.
Questions from the board?
I just have a comment that, sorry you've had to wait 3 years for this. And secondly, that quitclaim deed does state that the land reverts back if it's not honored, if we breach our contract on this. So I would really encourage us to consider getting this done.
Okay.
Agree.
Any additional comments? Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 24-2019, a resolution approving the disbursement of funds from the 2019 Public Works budget to El Paso County Parks as per an agreement in 2016 for town support of needed repairs for the Santa Fe Trail crossing underneath Highway 105.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Romero?
Trustee Romanello.
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein.
Yes.
Trustee Stevens.
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Trustee Koopman.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Resolution number 25-209, a resolution authorizing additional water enterprise contingency funds for emergency repairs to well 9. Mr. Thornish.
Yes, the very last board meeting we had, I had a resolution in front of you to appropriate contingency funds to perform emergency repairs at well number 9. And at that time, they were in the process of looking at scheduling to pull the pump and motor out. And during that process, part of that inspection is to evaluate the condition of the pipe where the water gets pumped up through and the power cables that go down and support it. And when they brought that up, we had pictures, I didn't include them in the package, but I have many pictures I could forward to you if you're interested.
I'm
That
interested.
show the corrosion on the pipe where the pipes thread together, some of the areas of the threading is so thin you could break it with your hand. So it's amazing how much of this pipe held together enough when they pulled it. And then secondly, the cable has a metal sheathing around it, and everything that was below the water line, the existing static water level, all the metal was gone. We had exposed cable, we had some strands that were exposed. The options they gave us were we can repair the sections of cable that needed, which were several hundred feet in 500-600 foot range, and to replace just the pipes that were the worst. We made a decision internally that the most budget-wise decision and safe thing to do was to replace all that pipe and to replace all that cable.
Yeah.
So that 5 years from now, we're not back doing the same thing. So this is practically gonna give us we had already appropriated the money for a pump and motor, additional $35,000, so that changed the range between 115 and 125. So what you have in here is approval of Water Enterprise Fund contingency up to 125,000 in order to get this well back in a full operational capacity. Right now, the plan is if you approve this, what we've heard as of this morning is that we may have this well back in operation before the end of the week.
That's great.
They were able to get enough cable and pipe coming this way to accomplish that.
Questions from the board? So if you had exposed power lines below, or exposed electrical below the water line, did that charge the water to kill all the bacteria?
I wish it was that easy, because then maybe we'd build that into it.
Okay.
That would have been great, though. Great.
What our concern is, and one of the things we're gonna be looking at is, for a well that's only 10 years old, that's a lot of corrosion occurring, so we're gonna take some pH samples of the raw water and see whether we have what they call an aggressive water, which we may be able to add some chemicals down hole to try to neutralize some of that, to raise the pH.
What's the makeup of that metal? Is that galvanized or?
It was galvanized at the time, 10 years ago. Now what they're gonna put back in is a poly-type carbonate.
Composite?
That's resistant to corrosion.
Good.
Did you consider cold rolled steel?
No, I'm not aware of cold rolled steel sheathing.
Okay.
Well cut. I mean, normally our well guys are pretty good at making recommendations. And if they have an opportunity to give us some options, they always do. This seemed like the best fit. I mean, I could go on for a long time talking about how
No.
those are put together.
That's okay.
So, motion to pass resolution number 25-2019, a resolution authorizing additional water enterprise contingency funds for emergency repairs to well number 9.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Romero?
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Tharnish. Resolution number 26-2019, a resolution opposing the national popular vote interstate compact. This is my resolution. I was hoping to have Ms. Carver, or Representative Carver here tonight, but she was unable, she let me know last night she was unable to attend. In fact, I think Trustee Koopman has heard her speak on this topic before, and she would have been a great speaker for it.
Absolutely.
But I will cover a few things real quick. In March, the Colorado legislature passed Senate Bill 42, the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. On March 15th, the governor signed it into law. This bill commits Colorado's electoral votes to the winner of the overall popular vote of participating states. This national popular vote devalues the smaller states and increases the leverage of larger metropolises. It opens the door for new forms of gerrymandering, not by geographical boundaries, but by the boundaries of election laws and voter laws. It also invites broader forms of voter fraud and requires Colorado to accept the results of any other state, even when voter fraud is obvious. The ironic thing is this was done without a popular vote of the people of Colorado. Another thing that I find incredibly interesting about this scheme is that no state that is involved with it has passed it by a popular vote. It's been a limited number of people in their state legislators that have passed it. Of the states that have passed the popular vote, 9 of the 15 rate at the very bottom of states financially sovereign. If you look at the states participating in the national popular vote, you will not see one state in the top 20 states as far as financial accountability. Over the past 200 years, the Electoral College has protected us from these kind of shenanigans. And of that 200 years, I think only 5 times has the popular vote not matched the Electoral College. To paraphrase Federalist 68, if you don't consider the Electoral College perfect, you must at least consider it excellent. So with that, I will bring this, I got a couple other fun facts here. If you want to look at the last election, 3,141 counties in the United States were won by 3,141 counties. There are 3,141 counties in the United States. The current president won 3,084 of those. The opposing candidate won 57. There are 62 counties in New York. Current president won 46 of them. The opposing won 16. The opposing won the popular vote by approximately 1.5 million votes. In the counties that encompass New York, being the Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Richmond, and Queens, the opposing candidate received well over 2 million more votes than the current president. Therefore, these 5 counties alone had more population. Sorry, I'm not reading that right. So these 5 counties alone accounted for the entire margin that the opposing candidate won the popular vote by. With that, I will bring it back to the board for any further questions or comments or an approval on this resolution.
Yeah, I'd like to make one additional comment. I strongly encourage that we support this resolution opposing the national vote, because the founding fathers put this together for exactly what you're describing, to protect us against fraud. So if a state like New York or a state like California decided to register more voters than they actually have population, and the secretary of those states says, nope, I'm certifying all 300 million that we have in our state, then we're going to, certify that. And the purpose of the Electoral College is to protect from that. So they each get all of us get our electoral votes based on, our population, and that's done through the census every 10 years. So it's critical to protect against fraud that we continue to support the Electoral College. It is not obsolete, as unfortunately one day my son came home from college and spat out what one of his professors, and I had to straighten him out.
Good father. I'll make a motion to pass resolution number 26-2019, a resolution in opposition to the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Romero?
It's approved already.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Koopman,
Absolutely, yes.
Trustee Bornstein,
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Public comments please keep public comments to items limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to make a comment? Ms. Hayes?
It's been a 7-0 night. We're rolling.
Good evening, trustees, mayor. I'd like to say thank you, first of all, to the mayor and to Mike for attending the groundbreaking today for Flying Horse Medical Center. I think that's going to be a really great thing to have downtown, and it's going to bring a lot more people downtown also, which is going to be great. Tomorrow night is our business after hours, and it is hosted by two monument businesses. It's going to be located physically at 300 Days of Shine, and then Arlene's Beans is going to be doing the catering. So two great things in one. So it's 5 to 7 tomorrow. I'd just like to invite you and all town staff to attend. Thank you.
What about Uber? I said, what about Uber?
The chief has a special Uber program if you need that.
It's expensive. It's a little expensive. Is there any other public comments? Sir?
Good evening, everybody, Mayor. Mike Bailey, Trail Lakes Radio and Trail Lakes Productions. And I know you guys have all received the email that Mike Foreman sent out about Colorado Indie Fest, or Monument Indie Fest, as we've decided to name it. What we're doing is we would like to hold a 2-day concert at Dirty Woman Park, benefiting the town's park and recs programs. We're gonna give the town 25% of all proceeds. So we're hoping to have between 4,000 and 6,000 people in attendance. We've been working with the police department, the fire department, Chamber of Commerce, Public Works, all of the staff here in town to make sure that we can do this in a way that it doesn't affect the town's businesses, but it will bring in a lot of new people to town and a lot of real good recognition to the town of Monument. I wanted to kind of open myself up to questions that the board might have.
Okay.
We wanted to bring this to you now because it is coming up on Labor Day that we're talking about doing this. We haven't made a decision or anything. We wanted to bring it to you, let you have enough information to where we could decide, hey, this is something the town wants to do.
Is this something we could put for a board discussion item on the next meeting? Since this isn't exactly the right,
Venue slot,
Yeah.
time slot. We're not supposed
I
to.
think
3 weeks out.
Yeah.
It's only 3 weeks out, so. I mean, the next board meeting's 3 weeks out, and I think they really need to plan on this.
But in all fairness, and we've had this with other visitors, I think Mr. Mayor, you're saying, we have certain protocol and procedure, and if we make exceptions, then we've got to do it at every meeting. If somebody comes with public comments and they want to have a discussion, then we got to do it. So I think now the board has to make a choice. Do we go left or right on how we're going to run these meetings?
Mr. Rivera, there is the ability to modify the agenda mid-meeting, correct?
I believe that, let me, yes.
I know there is, I just don't know the way to do so. It sounds like we need to have a discussion on this prior to.
Just a question for yourself. How long ago did you approach the town personnel and the police and the fire? How long ago was that?
Well, we've had it in the planning stages for about 6 weeks.
And it's only coming to us today?
Well, I honestly.
And that's not your fault.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I honestly.
I can point my
can't
finger elsewhere. It's
say
not your
either way on
fault.
how that worked out.
Easy.
These things take a considerable amount of time to plan. And so typically, we don't even apply for the permit until we know that we've got everybody on board. And that happened last week. So we were sure that we had everybody on board, we had everything put together. We were able to apply for the permit because then we knew everything that was involved in it.
And again, I apologize. I'm not throwing rocks
Oh,
at
no,
you,
no
but I think
problem.
this is another great example of following protocol and procedure so we don't put guests in this situation. Again, and the board's finding out last minute.
Well, we let you know, I let you know on the, via email, literally when I walked out of the meeting.
But it's
Well,
been
and
going
there's
on,
a
but it's been
few-
going on for 6 weeks.
Right, but at
We
the same
got-
time, you
we
don't
got
bring
that.
up,
Yeah,
you don't
we-
bring to the board something that's not possible,
Right.
is what I think.
He didn't
Exactly.
he didn't apply for the permit. Until he applies for the permit, it's not an event.
Right.
And
So
that was
we
just
can't do
last
it.
week.
Yeah.
And I have a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Can we go with, this is public comments.
Right.
If
we can modify
By
the
the
agenda
agenda,
mid,
because-
that'll give.
yeah.
Let's do that. So I think what I'm hearing is, and I just want to kind of set the table, is that generally speaking, public comments are limited to just that. They don't generate any
Right,
discussion.
correct.
No
Right,
question, move
we don't
on.
even respond to
And
it,
so
yeah.
that's the custom of this board, and what this board seeks to do this evening is to modify the rules, and I just lost it.
No, we don't want to modify the rules, we
don't
want to
wanna- no,
modify
we
the
wanna-
agenda.
Meeting.
Yeah.
Just for this agenda to modify.
Yeah, we
so
want to
can
keep
have
this
discussion.
Okay.
as far as public discussion, but modify and add a discussion item, I
So,
think.
pursuant to 2.04.03, 030I, it reads as follows: suspension of the rules. Any of the provisions of this section, which is in the section of public comment, any of the provisions of this section may be temporarily suspended in connection with any matter under consideration by a recorded vote of 3/4 of the members present, except that this shall not be construed to permit any action that is contrary to state statute. I don't believe that this is an action contrary to state statute, so the board may permit discussion arising from this particular public comment by a 3/4 vote of those members present.
I would
Can I
like,
make one recommendation? Is there any other public comments before we move on?
That's a good idea.
Okay, seeing none,
I'd like to motion to temporarily suspend the rules pursuant to section 2.04.030I, specifically to discuss a proposed event for the Indie Music Fest.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Ms. Romero?
Trustee Stevens?
Yes?
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes. That motion passes 7-0. We will now open it up to the board for any questions you may have for Mr. Bailey.
Your venue, what type, I was reading about these indie fests or whatever, so what type of venue, music, because I've seen that it's normally newer, you explain to us.
Oh, absolutely. So our target demographic is the 20 to 35, 40 set, the younger families. This is a family event. The music that we're bringing in, our headliners would be the Dolly Rots and the Unlikely Candidates. They're really big on college stations and all indie stations. So the type of music is going to be varied, everything from indie rock to indie folk type music. Artists are lined up to come in from all over the country. I think 8 of our artists are gonna be from Colorado. And so they're bands like Wilderness, Dream Feed, which is a local band. And if you wanna hear Dream Feed, you can hear them this Wednesday night at Limbach Park. That'll give you a good idea of the kind of music we're gonna be playing, I think. We're not bringing in hard rock bands or punk rock bands or anything like that. We're being very mindful of the community and very mindful of the type of music that we feel from our experience this community would bear.
What kind of music is this? I'm showing my age here, because you said names, I'm clueless, I don't know.
Rock and roll.
So
Yeah,
what-
not quite rock and roll. Did you catch the music at the park last week?
Yeah,
Hip hop.
So that was, I believe Soul School was there last week,
Yeah.
correct? So the stuff kind of in that genre, if you think about what Wayne brings, he brings more of the funk side of it.
right?
This is gonna lean a little bit more towards the rock side of it, but still in that kind of feel. How best do I describe it? Somebody asked me this the other day. Most of the bands are gonna be kind of like Dave Matthews. Okay?
Okay.
We're not bringing in Metallica, you know?
Because I wouldn't show up.
They probably would if I paid them enough. But the Dolly Rods do a lot of commercials for Target. The Unlikely Candidate, they get a lot of play on the college stations and stations like RXP. So they're more into the alt-rock kind of scene. They're not real hard, not real fast, you know? It's something that I think will carry well in the town.
If I look like a deer in the headlights, I apologize.
Hey, no problem.
But I think I got a better understanding, thank you.
And, you know, I'd be more than happy to send samples of the music to anybody that
Yeah.
wants to hear it.
Trustee
Yeah.
Gately?
If I,
I do
would
too.
you like to go first?
No,
I
it's
have a
just-
handful of concerns.
No, you go right ahead.
And I appreciate the information about it. However, glancing at the information that was sent versus what you said tonight, a few concerns popped in my head. In particular, you know, from the email, the only concern I really had was the 10 p.m. end time for music and the residential neighborhood literally right there at Dirty Women Park. 4,000 to 6,000 people.
No, 4,600.
4,600 people.
Yeah.
Almost 5,000 people, correct? I heard that correct? Okay, so that is my primary concern, is the logistical side of supporting an event in the many thousands of people. Music, I'm about as pro-music as possible, but I'm also, have been educated with my wife putting on the fireworks in Palmer Lake. And an event of that size with that many people in a small compact area with one road in and one road out, the requirements for extra security, I know for fireworks in Palmer Lake, they had 60 hired security guards just to hopefully keep up with that type of event. It wasn't a music event. And then obviously the neighborhood, I mean, the noise of just the people, 4,500 people, let alone the actual music, with truly a residential neighborhood there, and then right on the other side of the train tracks, you know, multiple developments. Not to mention the logistical side of where these folks are going to sleep, camp, eat, park.
Well,
I need to know a heck of a lot more about the planning of this.
no sleeping, camping, or anything like that.
Well, I'm not saying you're permitting, I'm saying where are they going to go?
Right.
Well, the town will get a lot of business.
the town will
Unfortunately,
definitely
we
get a
have
lot of
a
business.
handful of ordinance that
Oh.
would probably prevent.
Several things that we're doing. We're gonna be notifying all the neighborhoods around the park.
For consent or?
So, well, more like for, here you go, we're gonna do this. If you guys have a problem with it, let us know, please. We're also offering the neighborhoods in the area a very, very hefty discount on tickets. People directly adjacent to the park, we are gonna comp tickets to. We've already talked to several residents in that area, several of the mayor's neighbors as well, because I know you live right over there as well. So we've been talking to people in the area about it. The sound company that we're bringing in is extremely good. Extremely good. They're one of the best in the state. We've told them we can't be over 68 decibels at the street. So 68 decibels is about how loud I'm talking right now. So at the street, in the park, we will be at 68 decibels. County says that we have to be at 68 decibels 30 yards off the property.
So standing at the street, I'm not gonna hear music louder than you're talking right now.
That is our goal.
And who's gonna enforce that?
It's self-enforced for the most part.
Yeah.
The county, like I said, the county says we have 30 yards off of the property. Honestly, we're pretty good at handling our noise after last year. So we've learned a lot over the last year. But the company that we're bringing in is really good. And they know where we're supposed to be with it.
So have you done, have you,
Trustee,
okay, I apologize.
go ahead.
Oh, I'm good.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
getting
I
my
wanna hear from
questions
our police
answered.
department.
Well, I got a couple of questions first. It sounds like this is already happening from what you're telling me. You've already booked different things, so it's kinda nice it's gonna be the board, but neither here nor there. So 25% revenue is going to the town. What are your projections of that?
Well,
I mean, let's talk numbers. What does that mean to the town of Monument?
Let's talk
Because
600 homes directly impacted by
Well,
it.
I mean, there's a part too, in all fairness, a lot of businesses aren't gonna wanna be open during this, and they do shut down, but neither here nor there. What are your projections? What's it gonna generate to the town of Monument? Because I see nightmares on this, but I'm one person.
if we were to sell out the show, if we were able to put up ticket sales tomorrow and we can sell it out, the town would get about $25,000 off of this one show.
And as a promoter, do you take full liability for any damage, anything within this town? And is there something that would
You hold
document
separate
that?
insurance, correct, for assurance? How
Right
many
now,
millions of
we're
dollars?
looking at having the town do, because this is a benefit for the town.
It's not a benefit if we make 25,000 and there's $200,000 damaged. That's not a benefit.
Well, and we do things to minimize the damage, and we're
But
gonna
that's
have.
not what I asked.
Not minimize.
No, I didn't ask that.
Eliminate.
Do you take liability in writings financially for any damage to the town? It's a yes or no?
What's your insurance? Do you have separate insurance for the event? Who holds it?
Do you wanna
Who
fill
issued
down
the
with-
policy?
This is
What
not the
dollar
town to
amount?
carry.
The board can make the decision on whether or not you want the town to carry it through
Absolutely
CIRSA.
not, no.
CIRSA has approved that they would carry this.
Are they purchasing the extra insurance?
That hasn't been determined yet.
Well,
That's why we're
what
bringing
extra
it to the
insurance
board.
Would you be would you need if CIRSA approved it?
It would be an additional rider added on to our typical insurance, probably to the tune of several $1,000s. So there would be a direct expense to add insurance to this for this specific event.
I can find that out. From what I was told, it's not.
I
It's
would
part of our insurance
Absolutely
already.
be curious
I think
to
these are
discuss
things that needs to come to the board. I'm gonna be just incredibly interested how you're gonna move these people around and running buses. But my biggest concern.
Where are they
and you're-
gonna park?
And you're
Yeah,
gonna,
the parking is
you're
an
gonna
issue.
hear the sound. I've been in music for 40 years. You're gonna hear the sound. So the decibel thing, that's a spin, but neither here nor there. I wanna make sure that the businesses, the residents, if there's damage, the town is not paying a penny. It's on your ticket.
You need
And right now,
individual
from what I'm
insurance.
hearing you're saying, it's like, oh, well, you guys will cover it on your, and that's like, that's no.
Do you have additional security, or are you relying strictly on Monument PD?
We actually do have a security company that we have set up to, yes, sir.
How many? What are their
It
qualifications?
depends on what PD tells us to bring in.
I think there's a lot more information that needs to come to the board before we can.
Commander, do you have something you'd like to say or add, please? Or,
So I sat in on the meeting with him last week.
Okay.
He's very receptive to all of our suggestions, both from Public Works, from planning, from all of us. And he's doing a lot of work to get answers to many of the same questions that you guys are already asking that you have right now. From just solely the law enforcement side of things, whatever it takes, we'll make it happen. There'll be dollars associated with that, but.
Overtime.
Yeah, we have access to the Colorado Mounted Rangers to come in and help like they did on the 4th of July. So it's something that we can do from our side of things, speaking just for me.
What about, Mr. Thornish, what about the park itself?
Well, considering the area where they're gonna do this, the, area is athletic playing fields already. So they're used to traffic running back and forth, athletics, events going on. I don't really worry too much about the grassy areas. What I do worry about is vehicles running over sprinkler heads, or things being staked into the ground. We discussed that when we had our meeting. Nothing's gonna be staked in the ground. We're gonna have access road, which is already existing, all the way to the east side is where they're gonna set their stage up, where the current backstop is in that area. So everything, they will actually be facing northwestish.
More west, but yeah.
Yeah, depending how they word it. But from a public works perspective, I think we've had all our concerns answered. I don't think the impact, we're gonna lock the existing bathrooms in the park because they're bringing in a whole row of porta potties and they have a designated ADA parking area or something like that, so. I mean, it's pretty well thought out, the plan, between the police and us, and I think we had the majority of our stuff answered, and we're just waiting for.
I'm assuming with where Mr. Thornish is discussing, where Mr. Thornish is talking about your stage, that's gonna be a shell stage to where music travels in one direction?
Correct.
Okay. Trustee Clark?
And I was wondering, will there be alcohol at this event?
We are setting up alcohol sales with the chamber, so they will be handling all the alcohol sales.
So,
July, we can handle a less rowdy crowd.
and that'll be
How is it a
your
less
revenue?
rowdy crowd?
I'm sorry, I had two questions at once.
That'll be revenue for the chamber? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I was just gonna make a comment. Obviously, this is fantastic to promote Monument, and I think you said the age group is like 20 to 40-something, but I think in all fairness, where you're putting it, it's not necessarily 20 through 40s, and I think the community should be notified, not by getting free tickets, by how this will impact them. Because, again, promotion-wise, great, but I think this is gonna cost us a lot on the backside. I know how much money we spend on grass and doing the fields and things like that. Tom, you're not so worried about it. So I would hope that after this is all over and we need new grass and all the stuff out there, that that's paid out of somebody else's pocket and not the town. Because we're coming into budgets coming up, and I'm concerned about our budget because we're upside down and we need 5,000 things. And to bring people here is fantastic, but again, where you're putting it, the residents, this might not be their thing. So I think they have to be involved, and I think there should be some type of hearing to get input. Because it sounds like this is already approved.
No, it's not.
Well,
It's liability,
you already got
liability,
sound, you already
liability.
got this, so I'm concerned about this, I'm very concerned. Good for the town, but is it good for the residents? I don't know.
And you can't,
Trustee
you,
Clark?
What kind of alcohol will be served? Hard liquor,
Just beer.
just beer? And will be,
Well, and the Coors distributor does those, Mike's,
Fruity beers?
thank you.
Hard
Something
lemonade.
like fruity beers.
Mike's Hard
well,
Lemonade.
I don't
Like
drink.
like a Mike's Hard Lemonade, which is still a malt liquor type of thing, so it's,
So no hard liquor.
no, no. It would be exactly like we have at Fourth of July.
I'm,
You haven't gone, okay.
no.
So yes, just beers and then waters and sodas.
So who would be in charge of distributing that to the people that are coming in? Are they gonna card them, that kind of thing?
We card them, we ban them. Every single person that pours the beer is tip certified, which you've heard. That is our own insurance that requires us to do that, so everybody on Fourth of July that touches the beer is tips certified, and we will continue to do that for this also.
I'm
and
glad
do
to
you
hear
hold
that.
your own insurance for that particular beer garden?
We would not know, that would have been under the CERSA of the town, because it's.
So, and here's the concern with adding a bunching multiple vendors who each should, with any other event anywhere, require their own liability insurance separate of any entity, because each segment of a particular event holds your own responsibilities and liabilities with that. It would be incredibly irresponsible for an entity such as the town to take on the liability of you and your actions at the cost and the potential risk of something going awry, regardless of how planned out that it is, which is why entities require each vendors to have their own liability insurance for events such as this. So regardless of whether or not we can lump it in, this isn't a town of monument event. It's in the town of monument, but it is not a town of monument event. So the liability that's created by even exploring this is ludicrous. I want to hear about it, I want an update on it, but this is absurd. You have not communicated with the residents, 600 homes between on one side of the train tracks and the other right off of Mitchell there. You haven't communicated with them? We haven't notified them? There's a huge gap in our process and our policy. That needs to be addressed when we're talking about planning events.
That's why we're bringing it to you.
3
this
weeks
time.
out? You're kidding me. It's a
No,
joke.
But they're
no,
already booking.
the
I don't
event's
care
not-
if it's 2 months out. You know when you start planning events like this? January.
I agree. I'm
So-
not arguing with you.
I'm not opposed to exploring how to make something like this work. Great idea. Let's do it, but let's do it the right way instead of throwing it together. Because I guarantee you there's going to be issues.
And-
You've
and-
never done an event like this before.
No, we
Not
have.
here.
We haven't done it here, no.
Exactly. So you've got one road in and out. Where are these people going to park? Where are they going to walk?
Well,
They're walking, if they're parking, you've got the other side of all the other new developments along Lake of the Rockies. The logistical side of this alone, months to plan with our participation and the community's input.
And Trustee Koopman, that's
I'm
staff,
angry.
that's staff,
Visibly and rightfully so.
Mr. Foreman?
that's staff's and my concern. And that's why we brought it to you today, because we felt like that you needed to know about this now.
You bet.
Before we say yes to anything. And so we wanted to hear your concerns, and if this is the direction you want to go, then we won't take it forward. You know, you have to approve this long before we do. And so we knew it was short time limit and everything like that, but it wouldn't be fair to the event coordinator to say, no, we're not taking it to the
It wouldn't be
board.
fair to the
I
people
have-
to not.
I have a couple questions on that, Mr. Foreman. Then why wasn't it on the agenda?
We learned about this late. The agenda had already been posted, and so I think at that time, we'd already changed the agenda 3 times. And
But
so we just,
We could have added it as a discussion item early on instead of suspending the rules.
I'll do that in the future, but
I just think the intent to promote the town is fantastic. I think the short term, there's a lot of variables and from the legality. I mean, worst case, someone's drinking, they're drunk, they get on the railroad track and they get plucked, and guess what? They're not coming after you, they're coming after us, and we're gonna lose.
Or they hit and kill someone.
But again, we were all elected to represent the people, and the people live in the town. And I'll tell you, it's like I have kids and I'm living back there, I really don't wanna hear this. I don't. There's a select, you already said there's a select group, but this is a family community, so you're making the assumption they're not college kids. So I think there's a lot of things that have to be addressed, but you should have been coming to us weeks ago.
Have you addressed the parking and transportation issue?
We're still working to address the parking issue. We were hoping that the school district was gonna allow us to use the lots of the high schools and move bus people in. Unfortunately, they can't give us an answer until August 1st when the sports schedules come out. We've talked with Public Works about some land that Public Works owns down there on Mitchell. And they're not opposed to the idea of allowing people to park there at a price. We were gonna talk to the people directly across from the park. We've attempted to talk to Johnson & Johnson, and that's like trying to pull your teeth with a pair of tweezers.
Yep.
So, but, you know, we're definitely working with businesses down there on Mitchell, trying to come up with a solution.
And what's the date you're planning on this,
It
Sean?
would be Labor Day weekend.
Can I
And you
ask a-
said, around 4,500, is that per
That's-
day or total?
That's a guesstimate, to be honest with you. I can't give you exact, we may only be at 1,000. I have not heard from the fire department yet. They haven't told me. I had to estimate numbers based on several other events that go on in the region. And so we estimated the size of the park versus like Philip S. Miller Park in Castle Rock, or some of the event areas down in the Springs. And so we had to guesstimate what kind of numbers that we would be looking at. 4,000 maybe on the high side.
So, did you say you haven't heard back from the fire
I
department?
have not, that's the only thing that we haven't heard back on.
So we don't know if we even have their support.
What are you
for
doing
this.
for medical? Are you,
Can you please?
the rules
we'll
are
let-
suspended, but.
Can we please let
Yes,
everybody speak?
absolutely.
Trustee Clark?
Thank you. This is a question for Mr. Tharnish. Do you think that that park can accommodate the 4,000 people? Is there a limitation to the park's capacity?
I don't believe that's ever been figured out. It's a pretty large, flat, level area. The way it's proposed is the bands and the people will be on the south side, and the north side would contain the food trucks, I believe, or some.
Food trucks and vendors.
So the south side where all the people will be, I really don't have a good idea. We could try to figure out if that many people would fit, but there's also a beer garden in there somewhere that's fenced off, like we do for other events.
Thank you.
Trustee Kuzma?
Regarding medical, since you have not heard back from the fire department, obviously, with the expense of having a medical unit there, you need to at least minimum have an ALS and a BLS unit, which is Advanced Life Support, Basic Life Support Services, each holding their own cost, which is not paid for by the fire department, which would be a cost to multiple thousands of dollars. Who's paying that?
That would be carried by us, and that would be AMS,
AMS, AMR?
or AMR.
So
thank
you do have a contract in place with AMR?
We do not, but we've already been discussing it with
So
them.
you can provide us with contracted ALS, BLS contracts and the funds paid for it, not reliant on the funds of the particular event?
Yes.
Okay, so you have the funds up front, is what I'm asking,
We'll have the funds through sponsors, yes.
up front.
Yes.
Okay.
Trustee
Mayor
Burch?
Wilson, I just had a question for our town manager. I'm gonna make, well, I'm not gonna make any assumptions. You tell me, I would assume that our police, our public works, this is all gonna be overtime. So would we like to maybe talk about how we're over budget and by what percentages? So if hypothetically, we made 25,000, but now the numbers are going down, so we made 15,000, but it paid for our overtime, so we made nothing. We're gonna be in the hole at the end of the day. Is that a good business decision for the town of Monument?
You know,
I'm asking.
Trustee, we found out that this was gonna be an event, possibly, on July 11th, Thursday, at 11:30. I felt like we needed to bring this to you, so that you could ask all these questions. What I'm hearing is a lot of frustration. I apologize for not putting it on here. Probably should have done that. We made the decision to just bring it up to you, let you have these discussions and things like that.
Well, I think it was great that you gave us an email, and I really appreciate that foresight.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I guess.
My expectations was I would hear some of these questions between that time and now. But I didn't hear one thing back from anybody. So we brought it back up here just for you to talk about and everything like that. And I hear a lot of frustration. I think staff is concerned. We're concerned about the same questions that you're asking. But I didn't feel like it was fair not to let him make his case to the board. I didn't feel like it was fair not for me and the staff to just say, no, it's not enough time, there's too many issues, so let's say no to this, and we're not gonna do it this year, let's plan it for next year. I wanted to bring it to you, let you say what you're gonna say, let us listen, and then you're gonna make a decision.
Mr. Foreman, in regards to the process, what process does the board play in this? Because, and this might, you being new and Ms. Hogan not being here, clearly, if I'm gonna rent the pavilion there, it's not gonna come before the board for a birthday party.
No.
What is the threshold where this needs to come to the board? And do we need to get that in our venue rental agreement, or is it there? And maybe Mr. Thornish might know a little about that.
My knowledge of this type of event is we process several special event permits on a monthly basis for that park and other parks.
Because I know that many times there's
And every
graduation parties, hundreds of
Right.
people.
Every department has input to provide and comments. And within those comments, there are several attachments on a typical special event permit. If you're gonna have this many people, you need this many porta potties. Are you gonna have a beer garden, then you need security. If you're gonna have, there's all an answer for everything on there. And until every director signs off on a special event permit, then the permit, everything is sent back to Madeline, because she's the special event coordinator. And that's determined, whether the event goes forward or not at that point. Now, when it comes to the board or not, I'm not aware of anything in that special event process, other than if you're gonna have liquor, then there might be some
Right.
special event liquor license.
Yeah, so the normal process for this, y'all would have seen it when the liquor permit would have
So
come
we
to
need-
you.
We need to add in a new process
Right.
that when it becomes over 500 people,
Right.
it goes to the board or.
Exactly.
Or
And
within
that's
tax
why I felt like
residences or-
it was right to bring it to you tonight, because I didn't feel comfortable with this without y'all's knowledge.
Okay.
Mike, is this a standard time frame from July 15th to Labor Day to be preparing for such an event?
No.
Getting all the,
Absolutely not. This is kind of a rush time frame, and I'll be honest with that. We're actually co-producing this event, if we can do it. The company that does the event is trying to set these up all over the United States. They do them in Texas now, they do them in several other states. They wanted to bring it here to Colorado. They like to work with smaller municipalities because it brings notoriety and attention to those municipalities. We've only been on this for about 8 weeks. So they came to us and said, here's your opportunity.
And who is the people coming to?
It's Indie On Air Records is the company. And so they came to us and said, here's your chance.
Did they have a cancellation probably on what was gonna be happening during that time, and they're throwing a bone?
No, actually, because we're affiliated with Indie Ion Magazine, or Ion Indie Magazine, and they are as well. They try to work within the group that's station affiliates with the magazine. And so they were looking for something to do Labor Day weekend. They wanted to do a show in Colorado. We're very well situated with this group. And they said, you guys are the closest to where we want to be. Here's your chance.
Mike, isn't the pavilion booked out for that same weekend?
It is.
So there's already gonna be music going on there that.
It's an event that has about 500 people at it traditionally.
Already booked out?
That's already booked out, so.
For the limbo.
Yeah.
Different.
For them.
Gotcha.
Limbaugh.
Yes, yes, sir, yes, sir,
Yeah.
yes, sir,
And we've actually talked to Charlie about it.
yeah.
So, Charlie knows that we applied for the permit. He knows what we're doing. We're working with him to try and make both events really good.
My suggestion is I don't believe the board is comfortable with this event going forward at this time. If you would like to, and the board can let me know if they agree, if you would like to work with Mr. Bailey more and see if there is some hope for this event, you can let us, the board, know. But as of this point, I don't think this event goes forward as is.
Right, I understand.
Is the board in agreement with that?
Absolutely. Definitely an agreement.
So, Mr. Bailey, if you have any other ideas or anything else seems to be working out better, please let Mr. Foreman know, and he can bring it back to us in some fashion. If we're completely impressed, we can even call a special meeting and
That's what I was gonna
get it
ask.
approved.
You have my short list of long answered questions.
They're all
You
written.
got my
Okay,
list?
thank you.
I guess you're so.
We'll keep you updated.
Definitely.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you.
Do we make a motion to resume regular meeting protocol? Even though we're out of rules, I want to make a motion to resume regular meeting protocol.
Second.
We don't need a roll call for that, do we? Okay, all in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
We're back to our agenda.
Yeah, no, I
Board authorization.
I just had a clarification question for the attorney,
Okay, go ahead.
if I may. Do we need to, because we essentially gave direction outside of the typical rules, do we need to restate the direction that we gave?
Yeah, I don't, I think, it depends on whether
It
Mr.
was
Foreman
on-
understood it or not.
Public.
Maybe he did.
Okay,
I'm good.
It's on the record.
okay,
Okay,
sorry.
no worries. Board authorization items, proclamation of Creek Week, September 16th. Ms. Romero, are you aware of that?
I am, Mr. Mayor and Board. We are requesting the Creek Week proclamation is scheduled for September 17th, 2019, as stated, by the Fountain Creek Water. This is something that has taken place in the past, and if the board has any questions pertaining to it.
Just a clarification, are you bringing it forward in September, or are you bringing it forward the next meeting for September?
I believe, I don't know.
Let's go ahead and schedule that for the next meeting.
I believe it's just a proclamation,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Yeah, I believe her intent was to put it on the next meeting.
On the
Have you
next
put it
meeting.
for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Budget workshop,
So
August 19th.
the budget workshop we're requesting a budget workshop on August 19th. That would begin before the next regular meeting. This would be open to the public and held in the PD conference room. And food would be provided.
So that's before the August 19th meeting?
Correct. And I believe from 5 to 6:30 is
Correct.
what's planned.
Does that work with board members as you're checking your?
Well, my calendar doesn't even have August 19th on it.
You don't have an August.
It goes right to August 20th.
Just skip that day.
So that's Monday?
It looks like
That's
it's
a board meeting on
Monday.
Okay.
So it's just before a regular
Just
meeting?
an early meeting, sure.
Yeah, that's good.
So
Okay.
how long do we need to be early?
It's 5 o'clock.
5 to 6:30.
Okay.
So just-
But we'll feed you.
Will you have yourself or Ms. Hogan send out calendar reminders?
Yep.
Definitely.
Sure will.
Any other board authorizations from town staff?
The one,
From town staff?
from staff, my apologies.
I'm done.
I do have another one.
Okay.
September 3rd, 2019, weekend after Labor Day weekend, we have a scheduled board meeting. Would the board like to cancel that board meeting in the past? If so, we have no current agenda items for that meeting.
We have canceled that board meeting at least last year. I don't know if we did the year before.
And what was the date on that?
It's
September 3rd.
the holiday weekend.
Labor Day weekend.
No agenda items on it? I'm good.
Yeah,
So board in agreements with
Yes.
canceling?
Yeah.
September 3rd meeting will be canceled.
Thank you.
Please send out a calendar reminder for that also, just that it is no meeting. With no further board authorizations from staff, the board, Trustee Bornstein?
Yes, and again, this is not directed at our current council, because our current council is excellent, but we did discuss, and we've been looking at financials, and at the rate we're going at the end of the year, our tab's gonna be substantially high, and I think we discussed looking to get a full-time attorney on board for the town, and I think this is something we need to be looking at sooner than later. We're already in excess of some 70K right now, 65, 70,000 year-to-date. So I think this kind of jumps to the top of the list, and I think we have enough things going on activity-wise that it would be good support for town personnel, town manager, et cetera.
Mr. Rivera, are you looking for a new job?
You know, I wasn't prepared for that. I understand, the pragmatics of it, the economics of it, and no offense taken, and obviously, like yourselves, I'm all for whatever makes the most sense for the town.
But you didn't answer
Actually,
the
you
mayor's
didn't
question.
Actually, that aside, if we move forward with town attorney, you still, I mean, we've really appreciated having you here, and you will still work on our water projects and some of the other projects. You've always-
And transition of information, I mean.
Well, he's always worked on those projects, or for quite a while.
Whatever your discretion, whatever your pleasure, I'm happy to do that. In the past, what the town, I actually, as you know, I basically served as land use litigation counsel and some town manager, we call it general counsel work. And I'd be happy to keep on litigation that whatever you'd like me to do, I'd happy to do that. I'd be happy to do that, or transition it whatever way is your pleasure.
Mr. Mayor, did you not make him an offer, but he still hasn't
Not
answered
yet.
your question?
I haven't-
I heard
I'm
that.
very much flattered by the offer, I don't consider it, thank you.
So the
I will
direct,
write a number on this piece of paper.
Pass it down.
the direction is maybe to add a discussion item to talk about it. I mean, I don't think it needs to be rushed, but I think it definitely needs to be explored.
I think at the numbers that we're heading at, and I hate to come back to budget, but we've got a list of things, and as we talk about this, we're behind the 8 ball substantially. We're not ahead, we're not breaking even, so the longer we put things off, this is by no means to impact our current council, but I think this is something that our town manager should be looking at now. We tend to postpone things, and we don't wanna be having this conversation in November unless, you know, something's gonna sacrifice for this. I mean, we're living beyond our means, the board is, and the town, and we gotta figure out how to address this.
So we need to start the process by identifying the process that we want to follow in order to maybe put out a request, crafting a job description, all that fun stuff that needs to be done. That's what I'm saying. We need a discussion item to hash this out.
Is this the most appropriate way would be to bring on board a full-time attorney? Or is this the most cost-effective way to do it?
Yeah, I'd like to think about that.
Are you asking me a question?
asking you,
Sorry.
yes.
Yeah, ask that again, I'm sorry.
Is this the best way to move forward would be to bring on a full-time staff town attorney?
Cost-wise, yes. I think you know, the one thing that I hear from staff is, and not to say anything disparaging about Joe's part of a firm that's not here 8 to 5. In towns I've worked at, before, we had a town attorney that was there 8 to 5, and it's better for staff. You know, they're able to walk in their office and, you know, get questions answered immediately and stuff like that, and it's not costing us an hourly rate. You're paying them an annual salary. And so, normally, especially with the issues that we've had this year, I think this year is an abnormal year. We've got a lot more legal fees this year than I think anybody last year anticipated. And so, but I'd still believe that having a on-staff town attorney is the best thing for the town because it gives staff better access. And then we have, I think most years you'd probably save money, so.
Trustee Morrison?
I just want to make a comment as we move forward in this process, and we've run into this before. I don't think this is a process that the board micromanages. I don't think we need 20 meetings on criteria, left, right, and what have you. This has gone on for the past 2 years. I personally don't have the energy for it another time. I think we empower the town manager to develop what that criteria is. He finds the candidates and he comes to the board. I don't think we need to have 3 more meetings on the list.
There needs to be some sort of, because it isn't a board appointed.
It's an appointed position, and
Yes,
they
and
don't
we have to do
respond to
that.
the town manager. They don't work under the town manager. They work
But
under the board.
I understand that we've developed this
We
criteria.
had issues because we let it go.
We've developed criteria before for what we were looking for in legal counsel.
So let's bring it out and look.
So I think we do that, but let's just not drag this process on for months and months and months.
I'm up for expediting it and talking about it, but we can't rush through it. And as the mayor said, this is an appointed position, and this is an appointed position that responds directly to this board, not to the town manager. And we had significant issues before in the past with this position. And I'm not highlighting who, what, when, or where. That doesn't matter, other than this is a position that directly responds to the board and acts under the board. The board needs to participate in the criteria, the hiring, all of it.
So everybody would be in agreement.
Not about
Let's pull-
micromanaging, it's about
let's-
our legal
let-
duty.
Well, we've micromanaged, but neither
It's
here
our
nor
duty.
there. Let's pull out the criteria that the board did create, and let's see if there's anything we want to tailor, so we can begin the search.
Mr. Foreman, I believe Robert would, or Mr. Bishop would have that information.
I'll get that from you.
And past recordings of meetings or past meeting minutes in regards to that. Is the board okay with just directing Mr. Foreman at this time to put together those items and bring them back to the board?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
At the
Is-
next meeting,
Well, what does our next meeting look like at this time?
it's pretty heavy with planning. So,
Can we bring it to the following meeting?
yes,
Yeah.
so that we could do that.
Thanks a lot. Miss Jones. Is the board okay
She's
with?
gonna serve as acting city manager next week, or town manager too.
Is the board okay with that direction, not the next meeting, but the following meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Any other board authorization items from the board itself?
Yes, I'd like to, I see that in the invoices from Ms. Rivera's firm, that there's quite a few questions and research being conducted related to Trustee Clark's questions to you. So how could we have the information for the research you're doing from her questions, which we're not aware of? How can that information be disseminated to the board? Would it be certain information in executive session, certain information in email?
Generally speaking, it's how I've done this with other board members, and it's a practice that I've done with, is that if it's been addressed before, it's kind of a clarification question, then I don't share it. If it's basically an expansion on a previously shared opinion, I don't, it's not my practice to share it again.
Okay.
And that's what they are. And so unless, in the absence of kind of hearing something else or getting another memo from me, it's basically an expansion of that type of opinion. It's basically it's an expansion of a previously offered opinion.
Okay.
Housekeeping questions.
I think that's a fair way to characterize it.
So it's not really research into something like, because the word research is in the invoice.
Yeah, it's basically discussions regarding specific questions that have already been, where the ground has already been covered.
Okay. I don't need to know.
That's probably a better way to phrase it.
Okay.
Oh, good, I was afraid of that, Bill.
Any other board authorization items?
I just had a question, and I don't know if the town manager or mayor or the board, does each trustee have a cap that they hit with utilizing our council?
No.
We actually have talked about this before and trying to keep costs down.
I thought we were
with
supposed to
Mr.
direct
Rivera.
everything through the town manager and not go to the
That was-
attorney individually.
That was the idea behind it, is so the town manager could filter some of those questions without
Cost,
going to the cost for something that is
if,
either
if,
common
if it
knowledge
could
or
be
no
answered
knowledge.
without, right.
Yeah. And once again, going with a full-time town attorney will take care of a lot of those issues.
Yeah, it will.
To where, if you have questions, you can go directly to the town attorney. It doesn't cost us anything other than their annual salary.
I'm just-
Minus tasking the town
Yeah.
Exactly.
attorney, because if we're in litigation or something on one thing, the last thing we need is the town attorney doing personal work for a board member.
Yeah, but I think it's important to, the questions for, and Trustee Clark will obviously speak up, but the questions that we discuss are into that process. And so they really are, in my understanding of my explanation of them is that it's essentially clarifying questions from Trustee Clark regarding issues that have already been addressed.
So we're spending money on something that's already been done.
Well, I'm clarifying more, and I think that's important information to have. I mean, if you make a particular statement tonight, and I have a clarification question on that question, wanting you to elaborate on it, I think not only do we have a responsibility to fully understand every aspect of our role, but I think the appointed position of town attorney has a legal responsibility to provide the education, whether it's individual board members or collectively. You can't just not answer a question, and you just can't not allow an elected official to have the information they need to do the job that we've been elected to
But
do.
there are-
Otherwise, you're creating, again, more liability.
No, what I would respond to that by saying is that was very careful to make sure that I didn't offer any new opinions. It was essentially the same opinions rehashed. But I understand your point, and whatever direction you provide me regarding that, I'd be happy to provide. But that was the kind of the distinction that I had made in my mind, is that they were not new positions, they were not new opinions, they were basically explanations of previously offered opinions.
Clarifications. And
Which is a gross waste of taxpayer dollars to go to a source that costs to answer it versus going to somebody who already has the answer that is already included.
Well,
in
it
that
sounds like
cost.
the process was followed, and it went through the chain, because,
So we don't like the answer, so we go to a cost.
no, it sounds like the questions are going through the chain, as they should, and they're probably questions that you can't offer a legal opinion on for the, the expansion of probably what's needed.
But now,
Exactly.
should this information, though, because a question that X or Y or Z has, the balance might have too. So why is that information not being shared?
Because, well, from my understanding, because it's information that's already been
It's
addressed.
redundant.
Yeah, we
But,
kinda talked-
I understand that, but redundancy, if it goes to the mayor and there's a CC of the balance of the board, I don't perceive that as redundancy. If you wanted clarification,
No, I think you're looking at it in the reverse way. If, and take for instance trustee Koopman's example. If Mr. Rivera explains something in the board and then somebody goes and asks again, we don't need all that information again. It was this individual that didn't understand it.
right,
The rest of us may have understood it or didn't need as much
Or
clarification
didn't
on it.
think of a particular facet that may or may not play in. And I think that clarification is important, that regardless, whether we spend an hour to clarify it here, as we're doing now, or via email, it's gonna cost the same. And every trustee up here has the right to fully understand everything that's been communicated to us.
I agree with that, and I think we've kind of gone around on this particular issue regarding questions, and, you know, I think we have had various processes in place, and one of the things I think that's happened here is that, and I don't recall what board meeting it was, I believe it was, I wanna say March or April, whereby, essentially, these questions were forwarded to Mr. Foreman, and Mr. Foreman, essentially didn't feel comfortable not answering them, and at the same time, we brought it back in terms of trying to create some kind of framework to decide to get to have the board give him some direction as to what questions came to me and which ones didn't, and we didn't figure that process out, quite frankly. And so then it was kind of left to him to basically make the decision as to whether to forward these questions on to me or not on a kind of an ad hoc basis.
Which we gave him the authority to do, which I think that process still makes sense, and it sounds like it's being followed, so I don't see any issue here. And again, regardless, if we're sending an email, or talking about it now, I mean, we just spent $100 talking about it, it needs to happen. Bottom line, the communication, the understanding needs to happen. And you can't limit that legally, otherwise I think there's gonna be.
I understand your concern, and I'll address it.
okay.
Is there any other board authorization items? Seeing none, we will now move for a motion for executive session. Trust. Oh, I'm sorry, Board of Trustee comments. Anyone?
I want to mention that I was at a business down on Stetson Hills and Powers, and I heard a lady in there that which is quite a ways away from here, that was absolutely bragging up and down about the 4th of July parade here. And she just moved here to Sanctuary Point, because I went over to her and I introduced myself and said, you know, tell me what you liked about it. And she said it was the best 4th of July parade she's ever been to. No, I didn't quiz her and ask her where she's lived before, but she just moved here to Sanctuary Point, and she said it was phenomenal.
Ms. Hayes, will you thank the Kiwanis for doing such a fantastic job on that? And from my understanding, we had a total of like 2 scraped knees the whole day.
5 missing kids and 6 minor medicals. It was
Nice.
a easy day.
Did we ever find them? Did we ever
We're still looking for those kids, but.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Any other Board of Trustee comments?
I was just gonna make the comment that the 4th of July fireworks, in my 19 years here, was the most incredible I've ever seen in my life. It was amazing. And to our police chief, your cars look really good. And for Tom's interest, there's no more prairie dogs up on the east side, because they're all running down the hill, because I guess they're getting shot or gassed or something.
Something about that.
It was Sunday morning, there were big explosions going on. Yeah, so they're running down the hill, so if you see 5,000 of these little things, you'll know
I think Tom got an email Sunday morning on that.
Any other Board of Trustee comments? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion for executive session. Mayor Pro Tem Clark,
Elliot.
or Elliot, sorry. Kelly Clark.
I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session. The first topic, the Northern Monument Creek Interceptor Project, will be discussed in executive session pursuant to Section 24-6-4024E to discuss matters that may be subject to negotiation, developing negotiation strategies, and instructing negotiators. The second topic, Litigation between the town and Forest Lakes will be discussed pursuant to Section 24-6-4024B to obtain legal advice from the town's attorney on specific legal questions related to the litigation, and Section 24-6-4024E to discuss matters that may be subject to negotiation, developing negotiation strategies, and instructing negotiators relating to the town's response to this litigation. I further move to adjourn the board meeting at the conclusion of the executive session.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Romero, will you take roll?
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes?
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. We will take a 5-minute recess and reconvene in here for executive session.